epic match in Saint-Étienne tonight. They lost to Argentina on penalties. It had been 2-2 at half-time, at the end of normal time, and at the end of extra time, although England were down to only 10 men for the last 75 minutes of the game. It was their biggest match for 8 years, a passionate end-to-end affair of fluctuating fortunes. The penalty shootout was the first of the competition, and it's England's David Batty who has to carry the burden of the decisive miss. Our sports correspondent Graham Miller reports from France.
For the first time in this World Cup, England's fans were outnumbered by the opposition. There were far more Argentinian supporters inside the stadium in Saint-Étienne, but the sprinkling who made it, and the players of course, knew just about everyone back home was watching and cheering them on. The teams emerged with England conscious of the challenge ahead, prepared for the toughest test in their professional careers. God Save the Queen was roundly whistled, but England were determined to make the national anthem sound as if it were being sung at Wembley on Cup final day. Batistuta and Ortega of Argentina were considered to be the expected dangermen, as England, with David Beckham in an unchanged lineup, prepared for kick-off. It started with promise for England. Michael Owen with a typically determined run at goal. Lasso crossed it, and Alan Shearer just inches short of a first goal. It set the scene for an extraordinary first half. David Seaman pulled out of the challenge on Simeone, but the penalty was given. Batistuta did what he's paid a fortune to do, but Seaman almost saved it. Then young Owen, just 18 remember, earmarked himself as a star man around the world. Argentina couldn't deal with his run. Another penalty. Alan Shearer, probably the coolest man in the land. 1-1 from the captain of England. England stirred with passion and a sense of justice, then produced the goal of the World Cup so far. He started in the centre circle, and nobody could stop Michael Owen. What a finish. Argentina's watertight defence destroyed by the kid from Liverpool. Ronaldo each a heart out, a goal to remember forever. It continued to take your breath away. Paul Scholes went close. Sol Campbell made the sort of challenge coaches die for. Then, just before the break, Zanetti turned in a free kick of exquisite quality. Credit where it's due. That was 2-2. The second half began with more drama. Beckham reacted to Simeone's harsh challenge. He kicked out, and he had to go. Only the fifth England player ever to be sent off. England, down to 10 men, were forced to regroup. The play swept from end to end, England claiming a third. But Shearer nudged the keeper. It was rightly disallowed. No satisfaction, but great enthusiasm as the game went beyond extra time to penalties. It all came down to David Batty's kick. Rower saved it. England, just as in Euro 96, go out on missed penalties. Graham Miller, News at 10, France.
And straight now live to Graham Miller in France. Graham, what agony for David Batty tonight?
Well, indeed, what agony for all of us. It was a classic game, wasn't it? It had just about everything. But David Batty's penalty miss, we'll all remember that, and he'll have agonies for months to come. But we must also remember the positive side. That goal from Michael Owen, he's only 18 years of age, remember. He ran fully 50 yards. This will attract all the big clubs from all around the world. If he goes, this boy will be a multi-millionaire by the age of 21, all as a result of this goal tonight.
Graham, had Beckham not been sent off, we could have probably snatched a win over Argentina.
It's arguable, isn't it? He'll regret this terribly. He was sent off early in the second half, only the fifth England player ever, indeed only the second in a World Cup after Ray Wilkins in 1986. It let the side down, as you say. They had to play so much of the game without him, but he'll have to learn to live with it, just as David Batty will.
And Graham, what now of Glenn Hoddle? Obviously profound disappointment. Will he stick with it?
Oh, I think so. Had England played badly and lost, then the knives would have been sharpened for Hoddle's head. That's the name of the game in football. But England, you know, played very well. They can go home with their heads held high. Hoddle can now look forward to the next major football competition. It's the European Championships in the year 2000, and believe it or not, the very first qualifying match for England is this September. It doesn't stop.
Graham Miller, Paris, thank you. Clearly a great number of England fans somehow got tickets for the match tonight, but thousands more didn't make it into the ground. Unlike in Lens, the bars stayed open tonight, but so far at least there's been no serious trouble. ITN's Bill Neely has the latest from Saint-Étienne.
They had no tickets in Saint-Étienne, but they had a television and high hopes until the 6th minute. 4 minutes later, and the place erupted. 2 penalties and a thriller. No one expected another 6 minutes later. It was just the beginning of a game of legend. Passion and patriotism, this game had it all from before the start. Fans from across the world here for a classic fixture, a game steeped in history. England the underdogs from the start, you'd never guess it from the fans.
2-1 England, Shearer, golden goal.
1-0 to England. 3-2. We're getting stronger and stronger. We're going to win here, and then we're going to win in Marseille, and then we'll end up winning the World Cup.
Just wait. Batistuta, 2 goals today.
The Argentines just as convinced.
We have a lot of good players, so I think that we can win easily.
It was a game played amid a carnival atmosphere to a massive television audience worldwide. Fans bound together by a volatile history and by the ghosts of games past.
The hand of God. It's going to be God. It's good. I'd rather forget about it.
No one here, though, is ever likely to forget the way this one ended. There were minor scuffles here between rival fans inside the ground. The focus will now be outside as Argentines celebrate and most England fans face an imminent journey home. But they can say they were here for a game that will live long in the memory. Bill Neely, News at 10, Saint-Etienne.
Well, over 20 million people are thought to have watched the match on ITV tonight. Hostile and angry demonstrators as they left at the end of their evidence. Police were also attacked. The 5 proved of little help to the inquiry, though in a handwritten statement to the Press Association today, they denied any part in the murder. ITN's Shootout reports.
Such is the emotion of this case, these men were never going to be able to leave quietly. As they strode out of the inquiry, the crowd erupted around them. One of the 5 men, David Norris, tried to retaliate. Pelted with missiles and punches, the 5 were rushed from the building. Police formed a cordon around the demonstrators, but couldn't stop the violence. As the men were bundled into a white van, the crowd turned on the police. Eventually, officers retreated. Around 100 people followed them up the road. Riot police were called, and for nearly half an hour, they and the demonstrators faced each other. The standoff between police and demonstrators finally came to an end when supporters of the Lawrence family appealed for peace and police officers withdrew. The violence was certainly not what the Lawrence family wanted. They wanted to hear the evidence of those suspected of killing their son. But with their mainly monosyllabic answers and their constant claims that they couldn't remember, it's debatable just how much use their evidence was.
What we've learned is that these people are liars, they are racist, they are violent, and they have no respect for black people at all. That's what we've learned.
This afternoon, the 5 men released a handwritten statement saying they weren't involved in Stephen's death. It's the first time they've publicly commented this way. They said, "We do sympathise with Mr. and Mrs. Lawrence and the tragic loss of their son. We understand their quest to discover what happened to their son. We did not kill Stephen Lawrence. Stephen's name was misspelt." Meanwhile, the inquiry into the handling of Stephen's murder continues. The final report from the chairman is due later this year. Shuli Ghosh, News at 10, South London.
The Palace published details today of the royal travel bill for the last year.